Welcome back to the dojo, everybody. I am your host, Matt Lear, and super happy for you to join us today. I have some big news before we jump into today's podcast concerning the Mobile Hunters Dojo and how often we are going to drop podcasts. For those of you that don't know my history, prior to becoming the host of the Mobile Hunters Dojo and starting my own digital marketing company, I worked in nonprofit, specifically with individuals who were homeless. I did that for, 16, 17 years. And prior to that, I actually volunteered in that environment for a lot of years as well. So I've been doing that for 20, 23 years, somewhere around there total. And it really is part of my DNA. It's who I am. And from time to time, I felt like I wanted to try something new and kind of challenge myself and see if I had passions for other things. And that's where the dojo came from. And that's where, my business also came from. But I keep getting pulled back. And recently, my heartstrings have really been pulled. And I've been thinking to myself that, maybe I need to get back into what I believe God has designed me to do. And at the same time that I was having those thoughts, I had an organization reached out to me who needed something, some help that I can bring. And it just seemed like a really good fit. It's an amazing organization. This organization helps individuals who are homeless, who also have cognitive impairment and mental health issues. And they develop a very sustainable, long term developmental housing approach for them. So they're helping those individuals reach their fullest God given potential while also making sure that they're housed. So that's right up my alley. It's what I am really kind of wired to do. It's a lot of even the dojo here. I mean, we're helping hunters become the best version of themselves in the woods and in life. And even that mission statement came from my prior profession. So I did accept that position. I'm starting in September. And so it's bittersweet for me because it's going to take a lot of time and effort. And I don't feel that I could balance the same workload and provide a quality product for you at the rate that we were dropping episodes. So I have to scale it back. We're not shutting down the dojo, but we're going to scale it back and we're going to go every other week. So starting in September, our first episode on Thursday will be September 12th. And then our second episode will be on September 26th. The 10-minute Tuesdays, they're going to stay every week. So I can still put those out every week. Just our interview where we interview a whitetail master on Thursday. Those are going to go every other week. So what we decided to do is the Method podcast as of right now, they drop every other week. So we are going to drop our podcast the weeks they do not. So when we're not around, you can go listen to the Method podcast with DJ Riley. We had him on here. The guy is an elite level hunter and elite level host. And I'm sure most of my listeners already listen to the Method podcast, but if you don't, head over there and listen to them when we are not dropping ours. And then when we do drop ours, then they're not going to be having theirs. So it'd be vice versa. Anyways, that's what we're doing. We're going to scale back a little bit there, but we're still going to bring the high quality programming that you have come to expect from the dojo. I don't feel like if I would have went full time with the new position and then keeping my commitment with my family, that I could continue week after week, bring you a good quality product. And I believe quality over quantity has kind of always been my motto. So that's what we're doing. I will still engage on Instagram and all that stuff. We're not going anywhere. We're still around. It's just going to be a little less frequent, but we're going to bring you some really high quality stuff. So that's the news. I'm going to jump into our podcast today. We have Jacob Emery with DO3 Outdoors with us, and we are going over early season velvet buck strategy. And this is just timely because there's a lot of people leaving right now to head out and do that. I hope you listen to this podcast on your way. I'm heading out next week for Nebraska to do it. And Jacob walks us through his strategies for in-state and out-of-state. And he walks us all the way through from step one to putting the arrow in the buck. So I think you're going to love this podcast. And remember, starting September 12th, we are going to switch every other week. So our first episode in September will be September 12th, and then it's the 26th, and then it's October 10th, and the 24th, November 7th, and the 21st, December 5th, and the 19th. So thank you for coming along on this journey with me. And we're not going anywhere, but I really appreciate all of you. And I hope that we can continue to bring you amazing programming. Let's jump into this one. All right, Jacob, man, I really appreciate you making this happen. Here we are jumping on in the middle of the day. I do have to let everybody know that I have a crazy cockapoo, and my wife and daughter I know are out, and they're going to be coming back soon. And if you're listening on the podcast, like you're just listening, you're not going to hear it because I'm going to edit it out. But if you're going to watch the video, you're going to hear that thing go off. And I've got a love-hate relationship with him. He's a cuddler, but he also is a big-time barker. So just want to apologize for that right off the get. So, dude, thanks for joining me, man.
I appreciate it, dude. I've been seeing your stuff now for a while, and it looks great, and I've listened to it a couple of times, and it's good stuff.
Man, I appreciate that. You know, you've reached out a couple times and on Instagram and liked something or made a comment about one of my posts. And I thought that's so cool because, you know, when I first got into like, you know, watching YouTube hunts and stuff like that, I I remember one of yours that I seen like, I don't know, a couple years ago, I think. I can vividly remember where you go in on I think it's like a kayak and you kill this great buck, and then you're making a phone call, and it just was an awesome hunt. And that's when I ran into your stuff and started following you. And then since then, I think you did like I might have seen a short film of yours over at the Mobile Hunters Expo last year. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Was that, yeah, it was last year.
yeah. I actually there was a lot of great films in that. I was fortunate to get first place,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
um,
Yeah.
and and you know, it was a tearjerker, and that's what people like.
Yeah.
They relate to it so well. But yeah, it was a great season. I had a great year that year, and great hunting wise, and just tough in life, and you know that's why we do this stuff. Is it's something to lean on when times get tough.
Yeah, man, I totally hear that, and that's what I've always liked about your content. It's so relatable, you know. It's like it's really good, and it's done well on top of that. So, you know, sometimes you got to give a little bit when you have content that's really relatable. Sometimes you give on quality a little bit, but not with
Mhm.
you. You're like you're really well rounded and really love your stuff. So, you know that now that we're talking about it right now, I said we'll give you a chance at the end, but let's just let everybody know like where they can find your stuff really quick and where they can find you.
Well, I'm Jacob Emery, and my YouTube channel is DO3 Outdoors, and it's just something I kind of come up with quick on the spot. Dad of three, you know, I've been self-filming my hunts since 2014. So when I started it, I'd already had like a conglomeration of a bunch of hunts there that I could drop. And like you said, well, you actually gave me a great compliment. So thank you on the quality thing because I used to kind of pride myself on I don't need no great camera and all I'm gonna use is this phone and you know that's fine. But I've gotten now to where I really try to make things look good quality wise, but also keep that realistic, relatable side of hunting. I don't ever see myself changing on that. I mean, I'm up in my game in that the best that I can, but I'll never get, you know, Heartland bow hunter status or something. You know what I mean? I can't do that.
Yeah, that'd be too much for me too. And I actually don't know, like, I mean, no disrespect to Heartland at all. I mean, they make great stuff and I think they're unique in their own right. But I don't know how much people are looking for that type of cinematic, you know, type of content. But they do want quality content that looks good, and you definitely have that. So that's
There's a
awesome.
lot of different groups. You got man. I got a couple buddies that they just like they go crazy over Lee and Tiffany and you know all the TV hunters like they still like really look up to those guys and not that they shouldn't but just like I've come to realize that if you stick those guys on the same you know ground that I'm hunting they're not going to kill a 180 or 200 inch deer every single year you know what I
Yeah,
mean
that's right.
uh, but they've worked to get where they're at and everybody else you know has kind of worked to get where they're at as well but everybody kind of caters to a certain audience and anybody that watches my stuff they just like the guys that have regular day jobs and DIY and ain't
Yeah.
scared to shoot the small ones.
Dude, shoot small ones, dude. You just posted on Instagram like this fence picture of all like these amazing bucks, dude. Those if those
I,
are small ones, man, I'm never going to shoot a big one. So you got some
well,
awesome
those are the good
ones.
ones. I wouldn't bring the small ones out there to show nobody. You got to go to YouTube to watch them.
Yeah. We all start somewhere for sure, man. Yeah,
That's it.
you have some very impressive kills, and you definitely work for it, and that's what I really kind of gravitated to you on. I think when I asked you to come on the dojo, you're like, you said something like, "Do I fit the dojo?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, like you are the dojo. I mean, this is what it's all about: is working, honing your craft, becoming better. Getting out there, grinding, getting it done, and you definitely do that. You step it up year after year. Um, so I asked you to come on because I wanted to talk about early season hunting and doing that in state and out of state, some of the tactics that you apply and just how what your mindset is going into that. Because we're getting close to that time, and I know like when I go on a road trip, I might have already done my homework. In fact, for sure I have. But I'm going to go into, Apple Podcasts and I'm going to type in whatever I'm doing, right? If I'm going on a rut hunt, I'm like rut hunting and I'm listening to those podcasts for the 10, 12 hours that I'm driving. So I'm
Oh yeah.
anticipating guys doing that and wanting to hear, about early season hunting. So my first question to you is, when is early season for you? Like, because it starts, early could be October 1, it could be the end of August, it could be
Yeah.
September. What's it for you?
So that's great you bring that up because I'm a Kentucky boy. I do live in Southern Indiana at the moment. I have grown up living for that first full weekend in September since I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's my early season. And then I started kind of venturing into Tennessee. Some guys go to like North Dakota. South Carolina has a really early season. So when I think of early season, I think of like the last weekend in August to about the middle of September. Now that's what I'm considering early season. But you talk like Missouri comes in, I think it's the 15th-ish every year. That right there is about that time period when I know that all my deer have completely shifted to do something completely different. The food sources changed, the pressure has been applied, and everything that you've soaked in from May to that point is out the window at that point.
Yeah,
So,
which leads me to ask this question, and it's relative for sure, but
yeah,
I think some people shy away from that early like September 1 type of opener, right? It's hot, the foliage is everywhere, it's thick, and I think it on the surface can look intimidating. Do you feel like you have an advantage going in there on September 1?
if you, so I feel confident doing it probably more than an out of stater coming up and trying it for the first time because the heat is relentless. And like, yeah, you can go like glass in the afternoons, it doesn't feel that bad, and you can, whatever, you can drive around and spot deer all day long. But the minute you get out of the truck at, 2:30 in the afternoon, you're putting on all your gear and you're walking, wherever, and then you gotta work to get up a tree or whatever it is how you're gonna hunt. You're drenched. You are drenched, you are pissed, you are getting bit by everything you can imagine. It's a nightmare, dude. Like it is so hard to hunt early season in its own ways. And then again, you get the things that are good about early season, like patternable deer and whatnot. As far as an advantage, some places yes, some places no. Like Kentucky, you think, oh, maybe I'm going to go opener instead of during the rut. Well, guess what? The people that are going to be there during the rut are the ones that come up and they hunt that first weekend and they get their butts kicked and then they just go back home until it gets a little bit easier to sit in the rut funnel and shoot the first good cruising deer. But um, no, I personally don't feel like it's much of an advantage as far as avoiding pressure. I feel like it's an advantage if you can find a bachelor group or a couple backup plans that you feel like aren't going to be pressured. They're not going to be pushed and seen by humans all summer long. That right there is what just gets my fire going. Is finding those type of deer.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit. So, I mean, when does that process start for you and what does it look like?
So I will start gathering a little bit of intel camera wise. I'll let some cameras soak from May until just say mid-July, just for instance. If I get lucky and pick up a good velvet deer or whatnot, I mean, I know that I'm on him and I need to stay on him and continue watching. But by then, if I haven't found one, I'm gonna like start using my eyes where these deer are now out in these native fields. They're out in sometimes even a cornfield and of course soybeans, and they're showing themselves. Pick 2 or 3 good days, and I don't know if I'll get crucified on this. I like the red moon, the overhead underfoot days. I mean, I have just seen way too much like proof with my eyes. And it doesn't matter because you can go like directly between red moons and you still may see that monster out in a bean field. But there's just something about them days where if you've got 2 or 3 days to just drive and drive and drive at night or get out and walk, that's when I really start keying in on the bachelor groups that I want to target. They're kind of in that range that they're going to stick to because even from May to mid-July, you're getting changing food sources. Them soybeans are, 2 or 3 inches tall and they're nailing them. And then there becomes a point where they're not targeting those and they're targeting like native foods that are starting to really get up high. It just changes so much, but it's like about the end of July and the start of August, them deer have kind of figured out where they're not getting bothered. They're figuring out where they're going to be in summer until it's time to shed the velvet and break up.
So what type of intel are you getting while you're watching the bachelor groups? Are you just finding stuff that you know you're going to go after, or does it actually tell you more information than that?
Well, you get to learn your deer. So for instance, I'll give you an example. I've got a couple public bucks that I'm watching right now. They are like they're really not that bothered a whole lot by things. They can hear gravel popping, they can see people, just say in vehicles or boats at any point. Doesn't seem to bother them. But I've got a private spot which I actually just got home from that I picked up this year, and a certain type of group of people live around there that will shoot anything that moves. They just happen to churn the butter and drive their horses up and down the road. The Amish, the Mennonites, whatever you want to call them. They are so damn scared of anything on that road that if a car drives by, they're either laying down or they're jumping back in the woods for 10 or 20 minutes and they'll come back out. So you get to learn your deer and their mannerisms and just like what you can get away with. And the biggest thing for me is learning how those deer are moving from where they're bedding to where they're feeding in the afternoons, or where they're feeding and they're heading back to bed. It's really tough to kill deer in early season in the mornings. It can be done. It has to set up good for you and it has to set up good for them.
Yeah, win-win for sure, right? Like, yeah. So you've now gone in, you've laid down the cameras, you've identified certain bachelor groups that you want to go after, you've been watching them, you're starting to get familiar with their characteristics, their personality, their where they're coming out in those fields and stuff like that. What's the next step for you in the process?
Just stay on them. I cannot, me and my buddy Christopher Leopard, we had a talk about this about an hour ago, and I was telling him about how these deer were coming to this bean field, and I had put a camera up, and I thought I hit it pretty well. And then I started to notice I wasn't getting them near as much in daylight, but I had been glassing them out in the middle of the field. And he's like, they're avoiding your camera. There's something that's thrown them off. And I had just hung another camera on where I have glassed them coming down a cornfield edge, hitting this ditch, and then they're going out in the middle of the field. He's like, you idiot. You just hung a camera right by their shifted travel pattern. Now they're going to shift again. I'm like, damn, you're right. I almost went right back out there and grabbed it. So for me, it's just, you know, I like the camera data. You'll find some deer will tolerate cameras more than others. It appears that the ones that I'm focusing on the most now, like these are the most killable deer I feel like in my heart and head right now. Um, just staying on them. The trail camera data is awesome. It tells you like 1 out of 10 things you need to know though. So if you can watch them deer with your eyes, I mean, just religiously, that's the only way to go. Glassing is the best source of scouting when it comes to early season.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun too, actually,
It
because
is.
it's way better than watching a picture. I mean, you're right there, and if I mean, to me, it's actually hunting. It's part of the process of hunting, and it feels fantastic when I'm out there doing it. So on these lands, so we're still talking about Kentucky here, which you consider your home turf, right?
Right.
On these lands, have you already gone in and pre-scouted these, or are some of these just batch of groups you're finding on maybe a piece of public that you haven't had a chance to go in and scout yet?
I kind of challenge myself to I like my areas that I feel like I know like the back of my hand.
Mhm.
And then I always challenge myself each season, like I'm going to add a little bit more knowledge. I'm going to find somewhere else, 5, 10, 15 miles from where I'm normally at. I'm going to find a new summer area that these deer like. And the best thing, like I said earlier, was like watch all these different groups of deer. Watch which ones will tolerate the most like BS from people and farm equipment and whatever. And the day of the hunt, you need to decide like which deer am I going to go in there and kill. Like I preach, don't ever pass up that low hanging fruit. Like I will not go hunt a 160 that shows up in a bean field 1 out of 4 days when I've got a 140 that's hitting it 3 out of 4 days. Like I'm going to try to capitalize fast. That's more time to hunt other places, and getting a kill under your belt fast is like the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what makes early season so great. If you can start off with a kill in the beginning of your season, man, that is just a confidence builder for sure.
Oh yeah.
So while you're glassing these deer, are you taking notes like that? Like how often they're hitting that field? Like, are you trying to develop a rhythm on when they're coming, the wind that they're using, all of that type of stuff?
Yeah, I wish I had it with me. It's somewhere in this house, but like I've got each like area wrote down the way that I've labeled it or named it. Um, I'll document. Did I get pictures? Did I get videos? Um, did I go watch? Where did they come out? What day did they come out? What direction they coming from? Which way is the wind blowing? And what's the overhead underfoot? Is there any correlation? And I'll just compile it all, and then there'll be a day where I've got nothing going on, and I'll really go over and analyze it sometime before season. But that's just kind of what I do. I'm kind of a little scatterbrained. I've gotten better about it in the last few years. Um, but yeah, man, I kind of keep track of all that stuff, and sometimes you're going to find that they're on a really good pattern, and sometimes they just do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You,
So when you've identified them, you developed a pattern. I'm curious, how do you decide like where to set up on them? And you might have to share examples of that because it's going to be different for, probably every deer and every piece of terrain and every field that you're on. But if you could try to paint a picture, especially I'm really curious about areas that you may not have scouted, but maybe we can get in that in the out of state stuff. But like even with the piece that you scouted, are you presetting? Do you have an idea of like stands that you've prepped earlier in the season, or is it all just based off of that information you got? And then maybe you're going to the maps and looking. I guess kind of walk us through that process.
so a lot of times, man, field edges they're like that's the ideal. Like when you think early season, like oh my god, I want to arrow a 150 standing in the soybeans, and I can see his vitals, like everything is great. He doesn't know him there in the world. All is well. It doesn't normally work out like that. Trees that are right up next to fields are normally extremely hard. Like if you get very high or sometimes even very low, like you can't be too low because you're shooting through beans or natives or corn, whatever. You can't be too high because there's no shot because there's so much foliage. So if you get the opportunity, like the place I'm talking about on private, I actually went in there today, took a stick, and I climbed up right where I feel like this is going to be the kill tree. I've got two different places there. I'm going to kill them here or I'm going to kill them there. Climb up, cut a few limbs. I try not to cut too much. What is it? Tom Brownlee. He actually did a seminar at the Mobile Hunters Expo, and the guy is a scent nut. Like he knows how it all works. I don't know how to explain it. He does dog trainings for like bomb dogs and drug dogs and stuff like that. and actually destroying, stepping on, cutting any type of like tree or brush or foliage, or even stepping on the soil, like gives off some sort of like distress scent to dogs. So it probably does to deer. So if I'm going to cut something, I'm going to cut it now, not the day of the hunt or 2 days before. So I went in there and actually cut a few shooting lanes that I needed to be in there. Of course, you can't do that on most public. Something I really try to do is when I key in on where these deer are coming to a field, it seems like in Kentucky, a lot of times there's a ditch, there's a creek, small river. Those are like the most telltale signs of like they're crossing right here. Like the ground's cut out, you got a lot of rain, there's a lot of good foot traffic, they've dug out the ditch sides. Versus hunting right on that field edge, I'd maybe tuck back in there a little bit inside the timber. You're going to have more shots. You're going to have more pronounced trails of where they're hitting these food sources. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way because, I mean, I'd say 50% of the deer that I find, they may stand up out in the middle of a 400, 500 acre soybean field or native field. There's maybe a small willow tree or some sort of other shrub that just gets enough shade. There's a ditch that runs through it. There's enough water. I mean, every situation is so relative. It's hard to say like exactly how you're going to tackle each hunt, but I really try to just go with the flow, man. Whatever every opportunity gives me. If I got to hunt off the ground, I will. If I've got to hunt 5 feet off the ground, if I've got to one stick up 35 feet, I will. I can do it all if I have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's pretty consistent about every like killer that I know who gets it done, year after year, is that they'll do it any way they have to do it, right? Like
Right.
it's gonna be, 1 foot up, 20 foot up on the ground, standing in the water, whatever it takes, then they're gonna apply it and do it. One
Kill
thing
one
I
with a snorkel one day.
What was that?
So I'm gonna kill one with a snorkel one day.
That'd be awesome, man. So,
No.
so one thing when I first started going early season, one thing that got me kind of stressed out was, man, how far in do I push? Because you're right, like I would get to a field edge and I'd, like some of those trees are like overarching over top of that field and you just can't get a clear shot. Man, one of the things I was so worried about was moving in and bumping them off as they were bedded, even if it was just the does that were bedded close to the field edge. How do you mitigate that? How do you handle that when you start getting in there?
A lot of praying.
Yeah, it
I,
is.
it's that's tough, and that's one of the things. Like now is a great time to get out and just walk, just figure out like this is an area I'm gonna tackle. I'm gonna walk it right now. What am I gonna bump? You know what I mean? Like for instance, when I went in there a little while ago, I bumped a doe right off the creek edge underneath the tree that I need to be hunting out of. I don't want her there. I need you to go away, get out of here. You know what I mean? Um, that's really tough to say because sometimes, like I said, the deer are literally bedding in the food source, and sometimes they're getting up and moving to the food source, whether that's 200 or 400 yards. And that's just something you gotta kind of, you know, dial in yourself and figure out what they're doing. A lot of the early season deer that I've killed is more of like a situation of they may be right on the tree line and bedding on the tree line. So like I'll walk the tree line from a known area that I don't feel like they're at and set up whatever distance that I feel comfortable. Like when you do this for a while, you get that like sixth sense, like you should push until the hair on your neck stands up and you're like, I feel like I'm being watched. Like I feel like I'm too close right now. Now is the time to climb up because the minute you keep pushing, you blow them out and you're done.
Yeah. So, and you probably, to get to that point of learning, getting that sixth sense, you probably never bumped a deer and wrecked a hunt ever, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why I don't. I love early season, but that's the reason I've only killed like 4 or 5 velvet deer out of all these years that I've been trying. I'll push the envelope too far and I'll screw it up or whatever it may be. Just doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's the point though, is you really have to, right? Like, and I think what's going to stop somebody from never getting a velvet buck is playing it too safe and I don't know about never, maybe they will, but being somewhat consistent with it is playing it too safe, afraid to make a move, afraid to bump a deer, which means you never really learn that sixth sense.
Now, now is the time to be bumping. If you're going to bump one, now is the time to figure it out.
Hmm.
Like a bump and dump, I don't feel like that's going to work real good on early season deer at all. That's just me personally. Um, but like if you get them up now, at least you know where they feel comfortable. Their bed worked. It avoided danger. They'll come back to it possibly. They may not come back to it today or even within a week. It just depends. But now you know where you should be pushing in and where you shouldn't. That gets a little tougher out of state because sometimes you may not get to go actually put eyes on the place. So you just take your chances there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so when you're hunting here, still in Kentucky, you've glassed them. You're kind of figuring out where they're bedding. You formulate a game strategy on how you're going to get into that spot. The best you can. Um, when you have killed, have you usually killed in the first couple days? Does it vary? Is it kind of all over the first 2 weeks? Have you had any kind of pattern that showed up?
Man, it's the first 1 or 2 days.
Hmm.
It really is pattern wise for me. I have killed like I think four or five velvet deer in my life. It's been that first couple days, and then other than that, I've killed two deer in that second week of September. It always fell on that second red moon in September, and it fell on like a bean field that was planted super late. So they're still nice and green, you've got your moon and you get like a little bit of a cool down and it's like the velvet's back on or something. Like there's a magical 2 or 3 days right there where like I feel just as confident then as I would going in like September 2nd. I actually had a hunt last year that I went in blind and the beans were still nice and lush. The natives were still nice and lush. The corn hadn't been shelled yet, and I seen so many deer on that scent. It was no shooters, but so many deer on that scent. Like I can't wait to get back in that area that same time this year if I don't tag a deer before.
So I should ask, what does consist of a shooter for you? Where you at right now with that?
Um, it does this right here throughout the season. Okay, so my standards are kind of high in Kentucky. It's different when you're close to home. Like I live close to both Indiana and Kentucky. I consider that home. I'm going to be a little bit more picky, until it starts getting later, especially towards the tail end of the rut. Like don't get me anyone so excited. Like I'll probably shoot you. That's just the way I am. Um, but that 130 five-ish mark, somewhere around there, is kind of like my goal for early season. Like that's what I feel comfortable. Like I'm going to try to shoot that deer in Kentucky. I would be happy with that, versus I know later in the year I'm going to get bigger deer than that on camera, but will I kill them? I don't know. So I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit, like I said. And of course, out of state, I go somewhere else first. That's drastically lower, especially bow hunting. Like 110-inch deer in Tennessee, like the opening hunt, like that would fire me up. I might as well just shot a booner.
Man, I'm so glad you said that. I mean, I really apply that to my own life too. So I'm going to Nebraska September 1. Love going out there. And for me, like 120 full velvet, based on what I know about that place, I'm gonna get pretty excited. And who knows? I mean, honestly, if I get excited, that's the determining factor when I'm out
Yeah.
there doing that one, where Illinois this year, it's 135, 140, really trying to push more towards that 140 end. If I'm in Indiana
Mhm.
where I hunt later on in the year, which is up in the north end of it, it's if it's 125, then I'm letting it fly. So I love that you have that, variable of what is kind of the target buck, target animal, depending on the state and the time of year. I think that sets you up to have a lot of fun, actually. You know what I mean? Like if you just
Oh
go
yeah.
in with that one, like I'm only booner all the way out, then it's gonna be a long season for you, unless you're really
Yeah.
good at killing
No,
booners. Which there are guys out there
there's
like
a lot.
that.
There is a lot of guys out there. I know a lot of them personally, and
Yeah.
they're getting a lot of help, whether they'll admit it or not. They're either buying pins or getting pins sent to them, or people out looking for deer for them. I've heard a lot of I wouldn't say horror stories, but there's a lot of people that kill a lot of big deer, and there's a lot more to the story than people realize.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like there are really good guys out there that consistently just knock them down every single year, and I really look up to those dudes. But yeah, man, I'm only going out. If I go out of state, I'm going out 3 or 4, 5 days, maybe max. Like I don't have 7 or 8 days. I don't want to be away from my kids that long.
Yeah,
I want to get out there and have fun. I want to shoot the first thing that gets me excited. I want to have that experience and get home on the
yeah.
next one.
Yeah, I love that you brought up your kids really quick on that. I didn't know until recent. I think maybe 2 months ago what um DO3 stood for, and that's dad of three, right?
No,
That's awesome.
no, yeah, I've been snipped, so there's no more kids in the way. My buddy always jokes like, "What happens when it's DO4?" I'm like, "Well, we're gonna have to sell one of them to the Clintons or something because that, that that's it. We're sticking with DO3."
And if this next part I'll clip out if you don't want me to, but it's on your Instagram. So I just want you to know we both share a fond love for a woman named Keely. So
Oh,
so my wife's name is
but
Keely.
nice.
Yes, spelled different though.
Oh, is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I actually named my daughter. Me and my ex-wife went back and forth on what she wanted to name her, and I was like, I've always thought that since I was a kid. I love the name, and yeah, that Keely. She's 10 now, and she's my firstborn, and I've got Kyson, which is he might as well be my son. His dad kind of ran off and left him. He's 6 now. He started his first day of first grade today. Been there since he was 11 months old, and then we have our little Lakin together, I kind of give my wife hell for it because I'm like, every person I meet that's named Lakin is a girl. Like he's going to be pissed one day. This was your idea, and I'm going to make sure he knows it. But he's a little shit. He's a terror. He's almost 4, and he is always no gray hair. My hair's gone. If I took my hat off right now, it's slicker than a baby's butt. It's all gone. They've ribbed my hair, and all my facial hair is turning gray. 33.
Yeah, I got you by like 15 years, man, and or like 14 years, but so I've got no hair on top and I've got a full gray beard with my three too. So I'm a dad of three as well. And my youngest is now 13, almost 14, and he was that terror, man. He was, and I'll tell you what, boys like that are the most fun, they really
Oh yeah.
are.
Yeah.
So
I actually took the stepson and my youngest on a rattle hunt. I got a little bit of private land out where I'm from, and I was like, I got nothing better to do. It's like maybe we'll rattle up a big deer and I'll just shoot him really quick before they can ruin it. Well, they ruined it before I could shoot him. I rattled up a damn deer, and he was probably that mid 20s mark. And at that point, I was just like, life was tough and things weren't great at home. And I was just like, I'm just ready to get this over with because my mind was not in the game. And I had the youngest one right here, and I have the one behind me for my stepson. And I rattled up this deer, and I'm like trying to like get him on video. And Lakin will not shut up for the life of him. And I'm like, do you not see this deer at 80 yards? Can you please give me 20 seconds and be quiet? And Kyson's like, he's getting away. He's getting away. So then I didn't snap, but like, are you happy? He's gone. He's gone. You scared him off. So Tyson's like crying because I didn't shoot him. The youngest one's crying because I got onto him, and I'm just like setting my gun in my lap. I'm like, this sucks. Like I've learned my lesson. We don't take the youngest one with us anymore until he gets a little bit of age on him.
yeah, yeah. My son's just now going in the wood. I wrecked him like I'm pretty hardcore. Like usually when I do something, I'm just all in, and I took him scouting with me. I took the oldest scouting with me, and we did 9 miles in the hills of Illinois. And he had
I
like
wouldn't have even done that.
he had oversized boots on, and like I don't it was tough. So it was like after that, it was like, nah, dad, I don't want to go scouting with you anymore. And then the second one, we spent like 4.5 hours out in the swamp in March, the youngest one, and he's like, yeah, I'm good. So now finally at age 13, the youngest one's like, man, I'm ready. I took him turkey hunting, and we got on 3 turkey, but he missed those. But he's going out for youth season this year, and we got a pretty sweet spot. So I think it's gonna happen
Awesome.
for him. Yeah, yeah. So it's fun,
Good.
man.
I think
So
it's best to set your kids up for a high opportunity hunt. You know what I mean? Like they need to see something. They need to like I don't know how to explain it. Like nothing's ever a given, but like I'm not going to take my son on a bow hunt in on October 7th in Kentucky. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep. Yeah,
I'm going to take
exactly.
him on a November 2nd. Like we're going to sit in the ground blind and we're going to see something. A
Yeah.
lot of something.
It's funny, man, because like early on, I was like, before I had kids, I'm like, I'm gonna make them do it the hard way, and that way they're used to the hard way. And then as I got older, I'm like, now I really want to make sure that he gets an opportunity to enjoy it. And then after that, we can go into like earning it a little bit more, you know? And
100%.
so thanks to a guy that is now become a friend of mine. He's my taxidermist, and I shoot 3D with him. He offered up a pretty sweet deal. I like you said, nothing's a gimme, but this is about as close to a gimme as you can get. So
Good. Good. Good
anyways,
deal.
so getting back to it here, anything about like that hunting in your home state early season. I mean, you talked about really putting in the work, running the trail cameras, glassing, writing down all of the data that these deer are giving you, their personality, where they're bedding, where they're entering the fields, what they're, preferring to eat. Anything else that you want to cover about, what sets you up for success in your home state?
Something I did want to mention is, I preach on these fields, and that's the easiest way to get a good beat on one is just to be able to visually see what he does most of the time. A lot of times you're not you won't have any acorns. You don't have that mass, you don't have none of that dropping in locally where I'm at for a little while into September. Like you get lucky every now and then, like September 14th, 15th, you might find a white oak that's just ready, but you normally don't. So that's just one thing I wanted to kind of mention because you get some guys like, what about the acorns? And like, what acorns? Like, they're not climbing the trees and eating them. They ain't on the ground yet. Like, it's not possible. Like, you got to hunt them hitting these like field food sources, whatnot.
Yeah. We actually had the opposite in Nebraska last year, which was crazy. Like we got there and there were acorns all over the ground. And
Really, like
yeah,
September 1st,
September 1st.
I'll be
And
dang. Right?
and well, I think it might my guess, and I know nothing about, I'm not an arborist. I don't know anything about trees, but they had drought, they've been in a drought for a lot of years. Not this year now. They got water. And I was wondering if the drought just caused the white oaks to drop early. But amazing enough, I think because of the drought, it wasn't like the deer were killing them. They were gravitating towards alfalfa and eating the green alfalfa because the alfalfa was really the only thing that was green still in the area that we were in. I mean, it was brown, crusty. The ground was about as hard as it could be, but those alfalfa fields were packed with deer every single night. I actually think our hunt's going to be harder this year because they've gotten plenty of water, and I think those it was real easy to find groups of deer and bucks. You just had to find the alfalfa. I think they're going to be all over now because they're going to have whatever they want to eat. Beans are
Right.
going to be good.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a little bit harder on us, but probably a little bit more enjoyable for the deer. But let me ask you
Yeah.
this quick question. You talked about, moon phase and, getting a cool night. It's opening day and it's 100 degrees and you have the wrong moon. Are you going out? Or you staying in?
Percent. I'm going to go out. Now, I may not go push the envelope on the most probable deer, maybe. I'm not sure. It's all relative to what I've seen the last, month and a half leading up to that. But one thing I wrote down right here, the MRI, the most recent information, it matters more than everything that you've seen. Like 110%. Like if it's 100 degrees, there's like no stagnant wind, and it's in the middle of a in between red moons or whatever. I'm still gonna hunt like 110%, but I'm not gonna go off of like what the last 2 weeks have told me. I'm gonna go off of what I seen last night when I watched the night before opening day, because they may up and move half a mile. And I'm not, if I see that deer, the deer I want to kill half a mile from where I've watched him all summer the day before, I'm going right there tomorrow. Like tenfold. Like he moved for a reason, you know. I don't know what the reason is. Maybe he feels more comfortable over there. Maybe something changed, the wind switch, you know, whatever it is. It's like he's over there now. I mean, I'm gonna go over there. Just I cannot preach that enough. You can scout, you can run cameras all summer, or you can show up here in Kentucky or Tennessee or North Dakota the day before a hunt and find a deer, and you can kill them the next day. Gotta have a little luck on your side, and things just gotta pan out. But like that last minute info is everything to me. And it's good to have a stockpile of like info of what they have done in case they don't show the night before. You know, then I can go back and fall back on what I've learned throughout the summer.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a great segue into going out of state now.
Yep.
Now when I asked you to come on the show, it was funny because you were like, I'm actually out of state right now, doing some pre-scouting and stuff like that. Do you always get in some pre-scouting before you go out of state?
It just happened to work out. So no, first off, I normally don't. Um, but all the years that I've done it, I'm gaining that knowledge of, you know, what to expect and what could or could not be when I get there. I just happened to be working out of town last week, and it was like they basically gave us a 3 day window to knock out 4 hours worth of work. You big dummies! You're gonna think I'm at work the whole time, and I'm gonna be in the woods. And karma almost got me, which is funny. I gotta tell you guys this, but I was walking down this grass path close to a slough, and I just felt something different under my feet. And I turned and lifted my foot up. When I turned around, I had a water moccasin nailed the end of my Zamberlan boots. Dude, I literally like I got pissed on myself. Like you know the funny cat videos where they stick like a cucumber behind the cat and it jumps. That was me. Like out of the body experience, just come off the ground, screaming, hollering like a little girl. Finally found a stick and ended up killing this thing. And I'll be damned if I didn't run into two more on the way out of there. I walked in there in 30 minutes. It took me 2 hours to walk out. I was so damn scared to move. But it happened to work out where when I went down there, I was able to be there at daylight. So like I could glass a field first thing, and you know from that point make a judgment call. I can see what crops are what's planted, what's not planted. Now I know where to place cameras if I'm going to drop cameras. I know where to glass that afternoon, where I feel most confident doing that. Um, and I did actually end up dropping a few cameras. It's funny because I pull into this area, and the first deer I seen is the deer that I'm dialing in now. Like he's a half rack. He's got an 8 point side or 4 point side, and he's just got this real big, tall spike club. Like I want him bad. He won't score jack crap, but I want him bad. And I was like, you know, and I seen the way he was kind of coming, but he seen my truck and ran back into the corner. And I'm like, just that little bit of in in state seeing that deer knowledge gave me enough idea of where I should put my one of my cell cams. Put it out. 2 days later, I've got him. I've got him every single morning coming back onto the public from private. And so if you can get out and you can put eyes on where you're going, I feel like it's best. Now, most guys aren't going to get to do that, but like you're going to Nebraska, you said,
Yep,
if you get there 2 days early,
that's the plan.
like I feel confident enough to give myself 2 days to find a deer to hunt, you know, by then, you know, for a morning glassing period and an afternoon, and during the day, I'm just freaking covering, you know, foot traffic just as much as I can, finding out where people are camped, truck pull offs and stuff like that. That's kind of like what the goal was me going down there this time was to get an idea of all that stuff. But normally I look at it as more like a getting there a day early or something logistical. I'll make phone calls. I'll call the local WMAs, the National Wildlife Refuges, whatever it is I'm tackling. I'm calling. Hey, jump on your computer with me. Like this field right here. Like, what do you guys got planted here? What's your goals here? Is this path mowed? Is this gate open? Like these are all things like if you do that in advance, you're saving yourself so much time and sweat when you get there that you can focus more on the more important thing is finding the deer and end up finding where you're going to kill them at.
Yeah. So when you're targeting these food sources, these fields, these ag fields, is there because you're looking on the map, right? You haven't been there yet, possibly. Is there certain type of fields that stand out more? I guess what I'm asking is, you know, are less visible fields more desirable to you? Or yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yep.
So there's something about, I'm just going to say, a high stem count crop or grass field that butts up to like a soybean field or a
Mhm.
sunflower field or a buckwheat or a wheat field. Anything that gives them that cover to like live and bed in and then move out into the food source right at dark or whatever it may be, especially like you said, if you cannot see it from the road, it is a gold mine. If I find that, like I'm going to dedicate an afternoon or a morning to watch that area, like 110%. And I'm almost, and it may be because I've done it so long, I'm almost always right. I
Mhm.
almost always find a deer that I'm willing to hunt.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. I mean, that's what we do when we head out. Nebraska's usually where we go. We don't always go to the same spot in Nebraska, but I think one thing, I'm a guy who loves adventure, and I rarely hunt the same spot more than 2 times. I might go 2 consecutive years. After that, I'm trying to find something else, even if that means I'm going to shoot a smaller buck. But one thing about early season, I think, is going to the same area, you know, consistently does give you a pretty big advantage. Like, you really can start learning the crop rotation around there and the different fields, and it really cuts down on, because like you said, I mean, you've got a very limited amount of days. And for me, I usually don't go back to my early season spot. If I don't feel a tag, that's a tag that just ends up in the soup. So I want every advantage I can, and I'm looking for those fields that other people can't see, because, like you do in Kentucky, well, there's locals doing the same thing down there too, right? And what's interesting though is I do find, like in Nebraska, is that they don't put as much of a emphasis on early season as I think like Kentucky does, or some of these other states.
Right.
But still, I don't want, a deer hunter's a deer hunter. Even if he wasn't planning on hunting on opening day, he drives by and sees, a 150 out in the field. It's going to be hard for him not to go after him on opening day. So I want to go somewhere where he's not being, seen
Yeah.
as well. Yep. So are you looking? So I would imagine you're doing the same principles you did in state. You're glassing. If you're getting there a couple days early, you're identifying, some batcher groups, and figuring out, what your best odds are. Is there any other sign that you're looking for besides glassing?
Yeah. So a buck's track is his signature. Like, so if you're lucky enough to cut a track, which, in the middle of a bean field, you may not, but like, say you come across like a sunflower field or the edge of a bean field or a cornfield, you're walking a row, you see a big track, that's a big deer. And most of the time, it's going to be a big enough deer for me to shoot. I know that. That if you can find that big track and you can find like a source of browse where just the tops are nipped off. If anybody has never seen like browse on a bean field, it just looks like the leaf is gone. Like it's just a little stem left there. And when you find like, say you find a freaking field corner and it looks like somebody went over the damn thing with a weed eater, like holy crap. Like you don't need any other info besides that, especially if you either see him or you cut his track there. Like, is he gonna come out in daylight? I don't know, maybe. But my God, if he does, I know where I want to be.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, you can also push back the next day. You know.
It you can't go off like, oh, I found a signpost rib. Well, he's not hitting that right now. He might. Or, a lot of people preach on even licking branches and scrapes in early season. It's like I don't see deer touch I don't see them, they ain't pawing the ground for sure. And I don't see them touch a licking branch. I've got a scrape in Indiana, and I will have 25 different deer hit it from like 1st of October to the end of December that I will probably shoot at some point, nighttime, daytime, whatever. They don't touch it. They will not touch it. They're not even around in that area, it seems like. They don't touch them scrapes or the licking branches locally. I know that other people in different places will say otherwise, and that's great. They are. Take advantage of it. But other than that, if I'm not spotting them, if I'm not, able to glass, I'm cruising field edges as quick as I can. Try not to break beanstalks. I'm trying not to break down the ground and just I'm looking for where it looks like a weed eater went over the food.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's great. So like if you're out of state, like one of the techniques that I'll use is, I'll go out, I'll definitely glass in the morning. I'm going to glass in the evening, and I'm going to try to cover as much ground as I can to find what I need to find. During the day though, I'm going to go to some of those less desirable fields that I'm not going to get out and build the glass, and I'm walking those edges looking for just exactly what you said. They're mowing down the tops, just heavy runs. I will say last year in Nebraska, the guy that I went with did find a fresh scrape. And if it's fresh, I mean, for him, it worked. I mean, he sat for 15 minutes and killed a 130 full velvet. But
There you go.
that was the only field we found a fresh scrape on. And we covered a lot. We lost
Pretty
pounds.
wild.
Yeah, it was 100 degrees. We lost pounds. We never sat at the hotel. We were out every single day on the fields and looking for scrapes and looking for stuff. And, so he found that one that was fresh and he killed right away on it.
I want to add to something is if you're not having luck spotting the deer, if just say for instance, if you've got a rectangle field, okay, and if it's a real long field, like I'm only gonna have time to cover one side before I'm either gonna get exhausted or heat stroke, whatever. I'm going to the west side of that field where the sun is gonna be. That's where your shade's gonna be, and the deer, if it sets up right, are almost always gonna be on that shaded side first. Now, I've seen it where they made me look like a dumbass too. Like I said, I see them stand out in the middle of a 500-acre bean field in the sun, and they just feed and feed and feed and lay down. If you've ever walked out either in a cornfield, a really high Johnson grass field, or beans, and you just lay down under that canopy, it is 25 to 30 degrees cooler right there. There may not be no wind blowing, but like it is so much cooler right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Now, is your tactic out of state? Like, are you pretty aggressive when you're out of state and you got 3 to 4 or 5 days to get it done?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not scared to bump whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna push as close, like I said, until I get that warm fuzzy feeling, and then it's time to back off. Especially if you've spotted one. Oh God, there's nothing that makes my freaking butthole pucker up more. If you know right where one's coming out and you feel like he's within 100 yards of there, I am the most careful person in the world. But if I hadn't seen one, I mean, I might as well be walking down through there with a tambourine sometimes. I need to work on that. But yeah, for sure. I'm super aggressive, and like I said, I'm just trying to tackle that first really killable deer, whether he's 120 or 150 inches.
Yeah. So for the guy that's he's listening to this right now, and this is going to come out in about 2 weeks. We're in the first week of August right now, so it's going to be mid August when this comes out. Um, and the guy that's heading down right now out of state, he's listening to us on a podcast talk. What tips do you have for him as he's heading out?
Drink lots of water. um, man, that's kind of tough. I mean, it's just hopefully you've done some e-scouting. Hopefully you've got your a couple places picked out you want to check. You need to definitely try to get there early. Like if you're just going in the first day, I mean, it's a shot in the dark.
Mhm.
So if they're already on their way, I mean, that's kind of tough. Hopefully they're getting there a few days early. Like I said, look it over on the map, e-scout, and just kind of like label like this is number one, this is number two, this is number three. Make it a point to go check those areas. And once you get there and you get an idea of what's going on, what the layout is, use your gut, use the sign that you've seen, walk in or whatever you've glassed, and watch that area that night. And if you see a deer that you want to kill, don't go look for another deer if you're already there. You know what I mean? Like focus on that deer. Like get back in there that next morning. Be sure you're there. Be careful approaching wide open fields because you know what? We can't see in the dark and we think I'm just gonna walk right to this field edge. Well, he can see in the dark and he can see your ass, walking down the gravel road and then popping out to watch. So just just be mindful of things like that and I don't know. That's really about the best I got.
Well, I think that was great information. What that tip you said about once you find a buck that you'd be willing to kill, like then don't go out looking for another one. Like you see them,
Right?
go after them. That goes back to that what you called it MRI, most recent information.
Yeah.
And that's your most recent information. You saw that buck come out to the field. You have him on glass. Like, go after him the next day and kill him.
Well, I can't stress how many times that like I got a bachelor group of bucks. I've got 4 bucks hitting the field. Well, one night there only might be 3 out there. One night there only maybe 2. Then the next night there are all 4 out there. So if you spot a 130 and you're excited about that, go hunt him because his big ass buddy might be right behind him the next night. And you
Yeah.
don't know. It's just because that's just the way they are. They're random. They're patternable, but they're super random.
Yeah.
As stupid as that sounds.
No, no, I totally get it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, last year I did bump a buck and he took off, not like in a panic. He couldn't smell us or anything like that. And so I knew where he was bedded, and I went back the next night, and the doe came out bedded right where he was. I was sitting right over top of her. Wind was perfect, and he never came out, you know. And then at the same time, I had a buddy glass in the field because he had already killed, and some new bucks that didn't come out to the field the night before because I was past the field. They came out that night. They decided to come out that night. So it is kind of there is some randomness to it still, but needless to say, I mean, we were in the Bucks the entire time. So if you work hard enough at it, you know, you could get a chance for sure. I think the advice is for the guy who's not actually driving out there is to, you know, especially if you're listening to this in the middle of August, you have 2 weeks. I mean, for a lot of us that go out of state, you're actually not behind the 8 ball. You can get online, look at the map, and you know, do some quick e-scouting and find the fields to glass and head out of state. There's places that you can go and still buy a tag over counter. Unfortunately, Nebraska is no longer that state. It's now a draw state, but there's some other ones out there that you can still do that and go out and do it.
Kentucky's quota is already filled up. So if you're looking
Wow.
to come here, yeah, can't. There's no more tags available.
Wow. Wow. It's getting
I'm
less and
I'm just
less.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
Oh, I
I'm
was
teasing.
like, dang,
Yeah,
I didn't
I
realize.
should have just let it go. I was gonna be like, oh shit, well I can't go to Kentucky this year.
Yeah, yeah, everybody
Yeah, more
would.
for me.
Oh, that's funny, man. So anything else about, you know, hunting early season in state or out of state that you want to share that we didn't get a chance to talk on?
Man, not off the top of my head. It's just adapt to every situation. And when you go, just make sure you got, I'll have I think I've got like an elevate tree stand set up. I'll have that with 2 sticks sitting in the truck. I've got all my latitude sticks that I'll hunt with when I hunt with multiple sticks. I've got my 1 stick set up, and I'll have a damn 3 prong 499 seat from Academy to where if I need to sit in the middle of the bush, I can.
Yeah.
So just be ready for anything. And I'm serious about the water. You better hydrate. It's going to be rough. I'll just go ahead and say like I've hunted the western portion of Tennessee in the last 5 years. I've not found anywhere in the country. I'm sure there is. The bugs are so bad. The horse flies are so bad. The mosquitoes are unreal. We've actually switched up. So the Tennessee hunt is kind of like a group hunt that I do with the hunting grounds crew every year. And I kind of talked him into let's try somewhere new this year. Like me and my buddy Stewart, we've had some great success down where we've been. I killed the biggest deer of my life down there years ago. Stewart killed a really big velvet deer there last year. And it's like, let's swap it up because they kind of bumped the regs back to where you can only hunt with a bow now. Um, and we booked this Airbnb, and I'm like, we're gonna go all in. The guy says there's deer here. I trust him. And I get out there and run into like 3 poisonous snakes in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, God, can we get our money back on our Airbnb? And I missed it by like 2 days. I'm like, shit, well, this is it. We're going all in. Um, just have fun and be prepared for really crappy conditions, but it could be the best hunt of your life too. You won't think about them bugs when you air a big one.
No, not at all. Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I don't even try to do scent control. Well, I'll be honest, I don't do scent control any time of
Me-
year,
I don't either.
except for
Yeah.
entry. You know, I just want to make sure I'm not walking where they're going to be walking.
Yep.
But I mean, thermocells going while I'm out there. I mean, if I have to, I'm deep woods off, sprayed on. I don't care because even without that, if they win me, they're going to get me. So it doesn't matter.
I'm going to buy one of them damn citronella candles this year, and I'm going to hang it in the tree with me and light it. Promise.
Yeah,
Because if they got you, they got you. You know what I mean? And it
that's what I
actually
believe.
smells kind of sweet. So it's like, I wonder if they'd be like, what's that? Get some stupid little 2.5-year-old that scores just enough. Come on over and check it out. See what happens, buddy. See what happens. But yeah, I'm gonna light one of them in the tree with me. I got a head net that I wear, just full mesh that I'll put over my head and just keep it there until like that prime time. I'll pull it off and deal with it then. Let a couple bugs bite me or whatever. But it's miserable, but it can be rewarding. Another tip, hear me out. Take a damn towel in your backpack. There's nothing I love more. And wear a t-shirt in. Like I wear camo. I haven't fallen into the victim of, solids and flannels and stuff yet. I like I feel like I'm gonna blend in better with camo, which you obviously are. It's just part of, but you don't need it. I get it. I'll walk in my pants and like a t-shirt, and I take a Ziploc bag just because like I don't want my stuff stinking,
Mhm.
make my stuff stink. Walk in with that. I take like a black towel in my pack. I get to the tree. I get set up. I'm pissed off and soaking wet. I change my hat. I take off my shirt and I wipe myself down with the towel. I let the sun or the breeze dry me off. Then I put on like my um, Sitka pullover. I actually really do like that thing because it's got like this insect line in it, and like I watch them, they'll land on my arms. I can't feel them, but they're biting. They're not getting through it. It's got like a mask that pulls over, so they can really only get to my eyes and in my hands. So, um, but yeah, dry yourself off. You'll be a lot less miserable than sitting there soaking wet for a few hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'll tell you this though, like misery makes the best stories. Like
It does. It
it
really does.
it really does. Like it's so worth it. And I would choose honestly a miserable hunt, where I succeed over like a cush hunt where I succeed because the miserable hunt, that story is going to go on for, forever.
That's right. I agree.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't thank you enough. I mean, that's an hour. It flew by.
Has it really been an hour?
I think so.
It has. Oh, I got a picture from the camera I just hung.
Pretty good.
Uh-oh. I don't know. Let's see. I'll be damned, dude. I don't know if you can see him. I mean, it's a buck, not a
Yeah.
real big one, but I just hung that camera.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'll be damned. Huh. Cool. All right, well,
Live. So,
I like it.
where can they reach you again, man? Where can they find you?
So you guys can find me on pretty much anything besides like Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now. If you look up Jacob Emery, it's Emery on either Facebook or YouTube. It'll take you to my DO3 YouTube page. I think I tried to start two Instagrams. One of them is DO3 Outdoors. The other one is like DO3 Media, just because I've been wanting to get into photography and videography, whether it's realtor work, weddings, and pictures and stuff like that. Um, but that one's kind of dying slowly right now. So if you want to find me anywhere, that's where you can find me. The YouTube is, like I said, it's going to cater to those guys that are DIY blue collar dudes. I'm loud, I'm obnoxious, I don't have a filter. I say what I want, I say what I feel. I get mad, I get sad. It's all there, and I think there's over 100 videos on there now.
Yeah, it's a it's a
Quite a
great
few.
it's a great channel. It
you
really
can
is.
you can really go down a rabbit hole. Like I got some really old hunts, and some of them, I mean, I wouldn't even watch them again. They're just older and they're kind of boring. They're them really easy hunts where you just go out, you shoot something, and all the stuff from like 2017 on, like those. I haven't been posting that long, but those hunts from that point to then is kind of stuff that's more enjoyable.
Yeah, you've got some really awesome stuff. You really do. They're really entertaining hunts
Appreciate that.
and
I
I
appreciate that a lot.
yeah, I've enjoyed them for sure. So, man, again, thanks a lot for coming out. Thanks for making this happen. And to all the listeners, thanks for coming in and listening again. We'll be back next Thursday with another Whitetail Master. We're also back on Tuesday with a 10-minute Tuesday. And until I see you again, embrace the journey.